To get things started, I do again just want to say thank you for being here to have this important conversation with me, with all of us. It is an honor to be in the room with so many high profile and impactful people, but it's also a joy to be able to sit down and to talk about a subject that can be very difficult, but is also so necessary to talk about, and that is maternal health, and specifically Black maternal health. As we talked about earlier, the reason I reached out to all of you individually is because I've either had conversations with you or I've seen work that you've done in the community and how important this particular subject is to all of you. Many viewers know my story. A lot of you have heard my personal story with maternal health, losing my son, but also even before that, difficulties in having my daughter and hemorrhaging and nearly losing my own life. And we're talking at a major hospital system in Central Ohio. And the fact that I had access to healthcare, I had regular checkups, I had continual monitoring of my own personal health situations, and this still happened. I know all of you have your own stories like that. And so I just kind of want to get your idea initially of where you think things currently stand, maybe why you wanted to even be a part of this conversation.
So first off, thank you for convening us together. There's no cap on the frequency we should be having these conversations, so I appreciate that. I'm here as a person who has been in this work for many years, but also as a person who's lived this, as a Black woman who has had experiences with just trauma in childbirth. And so I bring all of that to my day-to-day work and to these types of conversations. As far as where we are at a place that has tremendous disparity in this issue. And so I think we're at the turning point of a time when we can start talking about it. We can start definitely sharing what that disparity is, what is driving it, how we can turn this ship around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dr. Roberts, I appreciate you being here. Obviously, you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the status of, like Danielle mentioned, disparities when it comes to the health of Black people in Franklin County specifically. But what interested you in joining this conversation about maternal health?
Sure. So as a physician and as the health commissioner here in Columbus, I have seen firsthand the data that talks about the disparities and the losses that our community has suffered because of maternal issues as well as infant issues. And I went into public health because I wanted to help the broader community versus just one patient at a time if I were in private practice. And I feel like it is my calling and my duty to do whatever I can from a programmatic perspective, from an educational perspective, to inform the general public, but most importantly, the women and women of color of these issues so they can go into those pregnancies with the knowledge and know what resources are available in our community to assist them and their families.
Absolutely. And of course, we have two council members here today. I was at the council meeting when you wanted to put a specific focus on Black maternal health and having an entire week to recognize and bring awareness to that specifically. Why is that?
And I want to first also echo my appreciation for you hosting this conversation. When I think about the state of where we're at right now, I think about the state that we live in, and that's Ohio. And the reality is that Ohio ranks 7th in this country for highest infant mortality rates. And that is a sin and a shame when we think about the fact that we passed Issue 1 last year, cementing reproductive health care in our community, and the way in which women and men rallied around the state to make sure that our right to choose in this state could be solidified indefinitely, but then also thinking about the realities of systemic racism. the complex interaction of policies and procedures, laws and institutions that do result in disparities. And this is a disparity. When we think about the fact that Black women and Black babies are dying because of medical racism, right? And so I wanted to make sure that as a member of council, but also as a member of the African American community, someone who has had her own experiences in this arena, could give voice to those who unfortunately would not have the opportunity to speak up for themselves.
Absolutely. And Councilmember Bankston, I was at that meeting, as I mentioned, and you shared very personally that you and your wife had an experience with, I believe, a misdiagnosis. So I can only imagine from a male perspective what that looked like, what that felt like, and why you agreed to join in on this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I agreed to join in on this conversation. I'm glad that I'm here because I think when we think about maternal health, we only think about mom. And really dad and the entire support system around mom has a role to play in her health. And it was a misdiagnosis. It was also this rushing of always trying to get to a C-section or always trying to induce labor. And what we found out through having that knowledge and being knowledgeable, you know, my wife in the thick of it, right, is thinking about one thing only, and that's trying to make sure that she's pushing or doing what she needs to do for the baby. And so to be that support for her to say, take a second and let's re-examine this is something that my role is, right? And so men have a voice in this because at the end of the day, we're talking about family unit. As council member alluded to, when we talk about issue 1 and abortion rights, these are women's issues and women's healthcare issues, but men need to support women in making those decisions. And so for me, and anytime I can lend my voice and encourage other men to do it, I'm happy to. And in this particular case, sitting as a council member, we think about the women and our community holistically because we know that infant mortality and maternal health is about the social determinants of health. It is about the environments that these women go home to. And so that's our role that we have to do. But here today on this couch, I'm proud to be not just a council member, but dad to Xavier Kamal Bankston and wife to Habiba Bankston, our executive director at Dress for Success. And so happy to join the conversation and looking forward to it.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that support system, right, and that male perspective. That was a conversation I had a lot with my husband, and how traumatizing, quite frankly, it was for him to see what I was going through, even in the process of labor, but also after the fact and postpartum, and how difficult that was. But that support system, that holistic approach, which is why I wanted to bring in Jatu. And we've had some conversations about the fact that delivery, pregnancy, it looks very different for every woman. And it's important to approach that very differently for every woman, would you say?
Absolutely, definitely. And for me, you know, and thank you for bringing us all together. One of the biggest reasons that I decided to be here today is because for me, making the changes from the inside out are really, really important to me. Being able to sort of be a part of a large hospital system and see what's going on in that hospital system and make plans on how to combat it from the inside out is extremely important to me, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.